Hello and welcome to this long overdue Iron Man's Rogues Gallery, where I'll be taking a closer look at some of Tony Stark's greatest foes, whilst also exhibiting some of my favourite artwork for each character. We will begin with some villainous families who have competed with both Iron Man himself as well as Stark Industries. Italian nobleman Count Lucchino Nefaria used his wealth to finance technological research and make himself a power in the Magia crime syndicate. Eventually, he would frame the Avengers who opposed the Magia, but when they were cleared of treason, Nefaria was publicly exposed as a criminal. Some of his most elaborate plots included holding Washington DC to ransom before taking over the North American Defense Command base at Valhalla Mountain until he was thwarted by the X-Men. Despite being an Iron Man rogue, this villain is so powerful that he has often proved to be a formidable foe for superhero teams such as the Avengers and X-Men. I guess the apple does not fall too far from the tree, as Lucchino's daughter followed in her father's footsteps as the head of the Magia crime syndicate. Whitney Frost was raised by her wealthy adoptive father, Byron Frost. However, when he died, her whole world collapsed. She would discover that her biological father was the Italian Count Nefaria, head of the Magia criminal organization, and was manipulated into becoming his heir. Following Nefaria's incarceration, she became head of the Magia and was severely disfigured during a raid on Stark Industries headquarters. As a result, she would wear a golden mask and adopt the alias Madame Mask. Eventually, she fell in love with Tony Stark and impersonated his assistant before the relationship ended when Whitney betrayed him. Upon her father's death, Whitney turned on Stark and took her proper place as the leader of the Magia, attempting to kill him on several occasions. The Hammer family have proven to be a real chink in Iron Man's armour, however it really is the patriarch of the family that started the problems. Angered by rival entrepreneur Tony Stark's success, Justin Hammer was determined to undermine Stark Industries by tarnishing Iron Man, the company's corporate emblem. Hammer would utilise a hypersonic device to hack into the armoured suit and force it to assassinate a foreign ambassador. After Stark cleared his name, Hammer went into hiding and began enhancing Iron Man's Rogues Gallery by funding enemies like Blizzard, Boomerang and Walter Wizard. A subsequent encounter with Stark left Hammer frozen in a block of ice and floating through space. We shall now take a closer look at the Stane family, beginning with Obadiah, who is brilliantly depicted by the awesome Jeff Bridges in the 2008 Iron Man movie. After his father killed himself in a game of Russian roulette, the orphaned Obadiah Stane saw life as a game that he was determined to win. Indeed, Stane would become a huge success and rose to the head of a multinational arms manufacturing company. Knowing that Stark was a reformed alcoholic, Stane utilised psychological warfare against him to ensure he went back to his drunken ways, just so he could purchase the failing Stark International. Ultimately, Stane would buy up the debts of Stark International before taking full control of the company and renaming it Stane International, while simultaneously freezing Stark's personal fortune. However, when Stark defeated his alcoholism and reassumed his identity as Iron Man, Stane ordered his scientists to create an armoured battlesuit so that he could fight his foe. As the Ironmonger, Stane would use his more powerful suit of armour but was defeated by Iron Man. In his final act, Stane would remove his helmet and fire a repulsor ray at his own head, committing suicide. I genuinely admire this piece by Marvel illustrator Adi Granoff, which portrays Iron Man and Ironmonger in the midst of an epic battle. Granoff's detailing and use of colour greatly emphasises the mechanical aspects of the characters as the tubes and pipes are on full display. Like father like son, we shall now look at the genius that is Ezekiel Stane. Obadiah would push his son into hating and becoming superior to his rival Tony Stark. Upon his father's death, Ezekiel Stane became determined to take revenge and began building a new generation of weaponry for terrorists and supervillains. He would attain Stark technology on the black market and design a plethora of cybernetic enhancements for himself. Ezekiel would use his weaponry to destroy the Stark Dynamics building before orchestrating other villains to attack Stark Showcase California initiative team known as the Order. Ezekiel has committed despicable acts on Stark's global facilities, using soldiers who are willing to have their bodies reprogrammed into possessing abilities that are similar to Iron Man's. We shall now take a look at another formidable father and son duo that was forged in China. Said to be a direct descendant of Genghis Khan, the Mandarin was born in China to a wealthy father who lost everything when the communists took over the country. This brilliant scientist would explore the forbidden valley of spirits in his quest to gain power. It was during this venture that he discovered a starship that had crash-landed centuries ago, containing 10 alien rings with phenomenal powers. Some rings could be used to seize control of another's mind, rearrange matter, fire a disintegration beam, or create a vortex. Others could produce deadly gases and ice blasts, or discharge electricity, flames, bursts of light, and clouds of darkness. Upon mastering the extraterrestrial technology, the Mandarin conquered the villages that bordered the valley before embarking on a mission to seize control of the whole world. His attempts at world domination would often see him clash with Iron Man. We are spoilt for choice with epic artwork for the Mandarin, however my favourite piece has to be by science fiction artists Greg and Tim Hildebrandt. This example is number 71 of the 1994 Marvel Masterpieces trading card series, which is an era that I'm truly obsessed with. I feel that this painting perfectly captures the Mandarin's maniacal nature, drawing our attention to those resplendent rings and powerful hands. We will stick with our Chinese connection as we take a look at the son of the Mandarin. Temugin is the illegitimate son of the Mandarin and was raised in a remote monastery where he was trained in unlocking one's own inner chi or spiritual life force. Despite having limited contact with his father, Temugin eventually received the Mandarin's dead hands and his 10 rings of power before he realized that his father had been killed in battle with Iron Man. Feeling honor-bound, he took over the Mandarin's criminal empire and sought vengeance for his father's death. Since then, Temugin has clashed with Iron Man on several occasions, but has not yet fulfilled his honor debt. It is understandable that a man who wears a suit of armor to fight crime is only going to be met by others who don similar battle suits to oppose him. Although there are many examples of these, we will start with the one known as Blizzard. Employed by Stark Industries, Hungarian scientist Dr. Gregor Szczepanka became obsessed with immortality and attempted to steal and sell Stark transistor technology in order to fund research into longevity. After being sacked for his crimes, Szczepanka developed a suit capable of generating extreme cold and took the name of Jack Frost to commit acts of villainy. In time, the Blizzard became a nemesis of Iron Man, battling him on several occasions before he was killed by Ammo Stark, an Iron Man from the year 2020, who had travelled back in time to retrieve Szczepanka's retina patterns in order to disarm a bomb. Szczepanka's successor as Blizzard was Donnie Gill, an employee of Justin Hammer, who was also incarcerated for his crimes before Tony Stark took him under his wing upon his release. I absolutely love this piece by Alex Hawley, which showcases his eye for colour whilst placing the character in the centre of the action. His depiction of the muscular human anatomy suits the superhero genre perfectly, as you can see here. We now transition from cold to hot, as our next suit of armour has some real firepower. As the pilot of a heavily armed and armoured prototype battlesuit, Jack Taggart proved to be a formidable foe for Iron Man. Created by Edwin Cord, his technology was codenamed Project Firepower and was sponsored by the government with the purpose of forming a new generation of armoured soldiers to control rogue superhumans. After an epic encounter, Firepower would use his superior destructive power to defeat Iron Man, destroying his Silver Centurion suit in the process. However, Edwin and Taggart were not satisfied and continued to sabotage Stark Enterprises by intimidating a manufacturing group into not accepting a Stark contract bid. In another encounter between the two, Iron Man would use his newly created armour to defeat his powerful antagonist. Things continue to heat up as we move from Firepower to Firebrand, our next rogue within the gallery. Gary Gilbert became a political activist against what he believed were unjust businesses because of his father's unscrupulous business methods. Eventually, Gilbert became more radical and tried to initiate a violent revolution to overthrow America's capitalist system. He would utilise his knowledge in physics to create a series of weapons and his Firebrand costume. He would initially clash with Iron Man when Stark was trying to invest in a community centre against the wishes of a group of protesters. After realising that Firebrand's thermo burst could injure the crowd, Stark would take on and defeat his new foe in order to take control of the situation. Speaking of control, our next villain is the master of it, as he is simply known as the Controller. Crippled in a lab accident whilst working for Cord Industries, scientist Basil Sandhurst built himself an exoskeleton powered by mental energy. By placing a slave disc around a victim's head or neck, Sandhurst could take control of the wearer's actions and leech their brain power to charge up his suit. Calling himself the Controller, Sandhurst took command of an entire town with his slave discs until Iron Man defeated him and liberated the citizens. We now take a look at some of Iron Man's armoured threats from the East with his Russian antagonists. Originally known as Anton Vanko, the first Crimson Dynamo was a genius who created a suit superior to Iron Man's. After battling with Tony Stark, Vanko would defect and worked with the Avenger. Since then, numerous other men have worn the Crimson Dynamo armour and have come close to defeating Stark over the years. Despite this, most have lost their lives in one way or another during battle. Crimson Dynamo is only one example of the Soviet Union's attempts to bring down Iron Man. In order to prove the superiority of their technology to America's, they would utilise stronger materials, switching out iron for titanium. In order to gain the approval of his superiors, Russian inventor Boris Bulsky developed the Titanium Man armour with the objective of defeating Iron Man. Despite his ambitions, Boris failed in his mission as he lost the televised East vs West encounter with Iron Man, which brought shame to his nation. Subsequently, the mutant known as the Gremlin became the second Titanium Man, but died when his armour exploded. Boris Bulsky later returned as an agent of AIM, but also lost his life in a battle with Iron Man. Another wearer of the titanium armour would subsequently emerge, but also failed as an attempt to stop Tony Stark destroying a comet that was on course for Earth. We should now crack on with our next villain, because he is Whiplash. The first version of Whiplash was Mark Scarlotti, a talented Stark International electrician whose desire for the high life saw him become a professional hitman for the Mafia. He would construct a suit and metal whip before attacking Iron Man, who defeated him. Eventually, his suit and weapons were upgraded and he would adopt the new name of Backlash before enduring another unsuccessful encounter with Iron Man. Over the years, his Whiplash and Backlash personas have unsuccessfully fought Iron Man until he was finally killed in a battle against his foe when the sentient armour crushed Scarlotti's throat against Tony Stark's will. We shall now take a closer look at another individual with a lethal pair of weapons, the Living Laser. Upon strapping laser projectors to his wrists, technician Arthur Parks became the costume criminal called the Living Laser. Obsessed with the beautiful Wasp, he kidnapped the woman until the Avengers broke her out. After escaping from prison, the Living Laser worked as a henchman for the Mandarin, Batroc's Brigade and the Lethal Legion. Subsequently, he tried to enhance himself further by implanting laser diodes beneath his skin, but failed when the process drew too much energy into his body, causing him to explode. Despite this, he lives on as a sentient being made entirely of light. Our next walking weapon to have tangled with Iron Man is the mysterious Spymaster. The industrial espionage agent known as the Spymaster would work with a team of elites to obtain Stark Industries secrets. Over the years, he has worked for different employers from Zodiac to Madame Mask and even Justin Hammer. Eventually, he did come into possession of some early Iron Man blueprints and sold them to Hammer, who used the plans to develop the Guardsman, which led to the Armor Wars. Spymaster would be killed by his rival Spy, known as the Ghost. Since his death, others have adopted the name of Spymaster to battle Iron Man. Aside from battling men in suits of armour, Tony Stark has also encountered a plethora of robotic and cybernetic beings in his time as Iron Man. George Tarleton was mutated by his employers at the Advanced Idea Mechanics organisation. The bioengineers would mutate him into a living computer called MODOK, which was short for mental organism designed only for killing. In a twist of fate, however, MODOK would betray his creators and take control of AIM. With aspirations for world domination, MODOK came into conflict with Iron Man and the Avengers. This haunting piece by Carlos Valenzuela is one that I truly admire, as it depicts a classic armour Iron Man in real peril. Another computerized enemy of Iron Man is the former data engineer known as Ghost. This former data engineer was the brainchild behind Ghost Tech, a series of computer chips that could function and hold data in an intangible state. His employers use his genius for their own monetary gains, keeping him productive with unscrupulous incentives, such as offering him another employee for sexual gratification. Unfortunately, when the Ghost Tech project was completed, they had his new lover assassinated as she threatened to expose the company's treatment of her. As a result, he infused his body with Ghost Tech and formed a cybernetic connection with the company's systems, ultimately discovering that his girlfriend has been murdered. Fueled by rage, he terminated the company's executives before erasing any link to his former life and becoming a full-time corporate saboteur. In this form, the Ghost would begin a new life and started working for Roxxon Oil, who wished for him to destroy Accutech research development. During this time, Tony Stark acquired Accutech and first encountered the Ghost at the company's new facility. In a subsequent battle, Iron Man cornered the Ghost with a beta particle generator, which disrupted its cloaking device, allowing the two to engage in a physical battle where Tony Stark would prevail. My favourite artistic depiction of Ghost was by Marko Djurdjevic, who was the cover artist for 2010's Thunderbolt series, which you can see here. Another being that has given Iron Man an epic physical battle is the powerful humanoid robot known as Ultimo. These gigantic humanoid robots were constructed by an alien race as ultimate weapons of mass destruction. After destroying their creators, the singular robot that became known as Ultimo left its planet and became infamous as a cosmic threat who terrorized civilizations. After arriving on Earth, the Mandarin discovered Ultimo and reprogrammed it for his own purposes, using the robot to fight Iron Man. Their epic encounter in Washington, D.C. would leave Ultimo trapped beneath the Earth's crust. However, the robot would absorb the planet's magma energy, only to re-emerge years later, more powerful than ever before. It would take the combined effort of the Iron Legion and a new and improved Iron Man to defeat the behemoth robot. We shall now step away from the digital age of villains and head over to some archaic-looking enemies of Iron Man. Our final section of the Rogues Gallery contains mythical foes like dragons and gargoyles. After accidentally spilling an unknown contaminated potion on his hand, this young chemist attained the ability to turn any object to stone simply by touching it with his right hand. Dr. Paul Duval would exploit his newfound powers for personal profit and became a thief under the alias of the Grey Gargoyle. Despite being more of a rogue for Thor, he battled Iron Man during the Fear Itself event, where he defeated Iron Man and turned the entire city of Paris into stone. Our final astronomical threat is the alliteratively named Fang Foom. This shape-shifting alien resembles a Chinese dragon who left his homeworld in pursuit of conquering other planets. Landing on Earth in ancient China, Foom used his shape-shifting powers to mimic a human form with the intention of infiltrating society before beginning his quest. Eventually, Foom started working for the Mandarin, who believed him to be a mythical dragon, and together they clashed with Iron Man and managed to conquer a third of China. However, when the Mandarin discovered Foom's true identity as an alien, he was forced to join forces with Iron Man and War Machine in order to prevent Earth from being conquered by Fang Foom's alien race. This painting by Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell was painted for the 1996 Marvel Masterpieces card set. Despite usually depicting fantasy characters like Tarzan and Conan, Vallejo's style transitioned beautifully to the more futuristic-looking Iron Man. In contrast, Julie Bell, who was accustomed to drawing dragons in the Dragons of Destiny series, was the perfect artist for Fang Foom. I truly adore this work as it is so typical of the 90s collector card art period. Perhaps I'm being nostalgic, but what a piece to end on. And with our final rogue in the gallery, it's time to end our tour of the enemies of Iron Man. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that I did not omit too many of your favourite villains. Please let me know which other rogues galleries you'd like me to visit, but until then, it's goodbye from me. Take care.